On the heels of the PGA Merchandise Show, we thought we'd focus on Tiger's impact on the growth of golf business throughout the years. And we welcome in now Dan Roberts, editor-in-chief of Front Office Sports. My good friend Dan, happy to have you on. We appreciate the time. And I want to start on a broader scale here. You know, different tours, dynamic investors, an uncertain future in the game of golf. How do you diagnose the status of the industry currently?
Well, good to be on with you guys. And I agree with you that maybe the PGA Tour and LIV and what happens there is still the biggest story. And it has been for about a year and a half. I think depending on how you slice it up, golf is in a good place. I mean, look at the year Scheffler had, and you've got a lot of exciting, dynamic players. You know, at Front Office Sports, we've written a lot about the rise of golf creators, like on YouTube and social creators. I think it's really hard to measure just how big those have been for the growth of the game and bringing in young fans. People talk about ratings and ratings for 2024 being down a little bit from the year before, but I often think too much is made of ratings. We'll see what happens with LIV and PGA Tour. LIV got their new deal with Fox. Interestingly, some LIV events are going to be on Fox Business Network, which I think says a lot. But there's intrigue, there's drama. We can get into the heyday a little bit. If you ask me, maybe it's going to be hard to get back to kind of the levels of the Tiger, Rory, Spieth dominant days. I mean, I'm always wondering who is the new face of golf, right? But that's a little bit like baseball. That's a perennial question we can dissect.
Dan, speaking of Tiger and Rory, they're going up against each other tonight in TGL, the simulator league that they're both founder members on. And this has been analysed from almost every direction, you know, in terms of its product, the entertainment value, the competitive edge, the technological reliability. But it hasn't really been analysed as an ongoing test of Tiger's economic muscle in this game. Do you think the Tiger brand is enough to kind of keep this thing going?
Well, look no further than the fact that the ratings went up for week 2 of TGL when Tiger did play. I mean, we sent our reporter Lindsay Zienti to week 1 of TGL, and what I kept saying is Rory and Tiger aren't participating in the debut of their own new tournament. I mean, those guys didn't play week 1, but I think you have to guess that it was intentional to save Tiger for week 2. The ratings went up. Then we had week 3. The ratings dipped. Surprise, surprise. When you add Tiger and Rory back into the mix, they're going to be able to point to it and say, oh, look, the ratings are up. I watched week 1 very closely at a bar with some golfer friends. You know, I'm a golf watcher. I watch all the majors. I'm not a golf player myself, and these are all golf guys. And I thought it looked kind of silly. I mean, we're looking at a simulator, and yet they all thought it was pretty cool. And golf Twitter, at least week 1, seemed to really like it. The numbers were pretty decent. I agree with you. I think you can draw a direct line from Tiger's impact on the game to the rise of participation, not just on the course, but off the course. The simulators that everyone has now. Our golf guy, David Rumsey at FOS, just wrote a story about how golf participation was way up for 2024 off course. So that is things like Topgolf, that is things like other virtual venues, simulators. And I think TGL is a real representation of that. So if you put Tiger's name on something new, it has a lot of sway. If Tiger participates, that has the ultimate sway.
Dan, not a golfer somewhere. His lovely wife, Claire, is smiling, not a golf widow. Let's go back, though, 25 years ago to prime Tiger. Just how staggering was his impact on the game when he was wowing everybody, growing the game simply by stepping foot on a course and swinging a club?
Oh, that 2000 year, Jordan, I mean, we're talking about 9 wins, 3 majors. I don't know that we'll ever see that done again. It's funny, I had an old editor at Fortune magazine who used to say, an anniversary is not a news peg. But we can talk about Tiger's 2000 season anytime we want. It happens that it's been 25 years right now. As I said, I think you can really credit Tiger with quite a lot in the modern game of golf, not just on ratings. And by the way, you know, when he was at his peak, or even look at 2019 with the Masters, when Tiger was in contention on the final day of a tournament, the ratings reflected it. I mean, there was just no substitute. You got that huge Tiger bump. And I think for many years, when I was covering the business of golf at Fortune and then Yahoo Finance, we would write about Spieth and Rory and Jason Day and Ricky Fowler. And it was always like, who's the next Tiger? And I'm sorry to say, I don't know that there is a next Tiger. I think he's a once-in-a-lifetime talent and draw to the game. You just look at how he changed the business in terms of not just the course designing and the endorsement deals and a golfer being flooded on TV ads to the extent that he was. But regular mainstream sports fans who I think otherwise had no real interest in golf, snapping to attention. when they heard that on a Sunday at a major or even a non-major, Tiger was in the hunt. You know, the famous footage of the crowds following him. Those clips are amazing to watch. So 2000, an incredible year. I've seen a lot of people in the last couple of months writing stories about how he only earned $10.7 million on the course that year. At the time, that was a record. But look at it now and adjust for inflation, it would be like almost $100 million. Fine. I always think the adjusted for inflation thing is a bit overstated. But forget just the on-the-course earnings. It's the impact on the business and showing just how much in terms of the breadth of endorsements a golfer could get.
On that subject of Tiger being a once-in-a-lifetime figure, Dan, he was never all that giving with the media. He certainly met all of his obligations, but he didn't give more than was necessary. In that context, Justin Thomas sent a memo to his fellow players last week asking them to be more giving of their time for broadcast partners to better sell their product. Is that we finally reached the point where these players have realised that they have a collective responsibility to sell their own product, that there is not that one iconic figure who does it for them anymore?
Well, I saw that, Eamon, and I thought for a few years already the players on tour understand that there's a burden on them to, I don't want to say be charismatic because you can't really change your personality, but to be figures who draw fans in, who do give time to the media. Right now, over at the Aussie Open in tennis, we've had 2 weeks of consternation and discussion of the media and their role, and multiple tennis players saying that the reporters and the pressers are too cynical and too negative. On one hand, like, that's journalism. But on the other hand, you know, it's a give and take and a push and pull. And I do think it speaks to, I don't want to say it's an awkward truth, but it's the truth that there aren't that many guys in golf who are mega charismatic, draw in new fans talents. You know, I love doing the debate. Who is the face of golf? Arguably, it's still Tiger after all these years, even though, you know, he's not out there winning tournaments. You can say it's Rory, who is really the face of the PGA Tour in the PGA versus Live drama. I do think things like Full Swing have been huge for that. That helps. Players love being featured in that. I think Full Swing has become the model for other sports with trying to get your Netflix docuseries because it totally brings in new fans and it tells the players' stories. But they have to make themselves accommodating as well. I think they all know it. And, you know, unfortunately and respectfully to some of these guys, you know, a Scotty Scheffler, incredible on the course, but not really someone who I think is going to be the face of a whole sport and excite new fans, right? Ricky Fowler helps with that. You got some other exciting guys right now, young guys, Morikawa. But again, my take is there's not going to be anyone ever again who's quite like Tiger. And you're right. The irony there is he never liked talking to the media. He was kind of walled off until he was sort of forced to be more accessible. And I think you've seen him visibly relax and breathe out and become a lot more fun with media and fans.
Well, Dan, a place where Tiger certainly is the face, we can agree, in golf, yes. No longer at Nike, now Sunday Red, the face of his new line there that is having great success. You're seeing it all over. A higher item line, if you will. What kind of success is Tiger having there, and where does that leave Nike in its relationship with golf?
Yeah, I think you can draw a direct line from the sort of end of Tiger's peak to Nike getting out of the golf equipment business in 2016, saying, okay, with things where they are and with Tiger where he is, I don't know that we need to make clubs and balls. 30-year relationship with Nike and in the latter half, $20 million a year in endorsement value. These numbers are astronomical. It's interesting, Tiger and Roger Federer both ending their relationships with Nike right around the same time, maybe a changing of the guard. And I think what you're going to see is more megastars like that either doing their own thing or working with a smaller brand where they can be much more involved and hands-on. Federer these days is doing stuff with On Running, which has really invaded tennis. And now Tiger has his own thing with Sunday Red. Of course, Sunday Red is with TaylorMade. So he still has those relationships with TaylorMade and Bridgestone. Interestingly, Sunday Red is dealing with a couple different logo disputes, including from Puma. And I don't know if Puma is going to be successful. You know, you'd have to ask my sister, who's a trademark law professor. She always says the litmus test is, would an average consumer be confused? Would an average consumer see Tiger's Sunday Red logo and think it's the Puma logo? I don't think so. But the fact that they're going after him is because they're seeing that this logo and this new brand is getting a lot of attention because it's Tiger Woods. Anytime Tiger's involved in something, I think it's really clever. I love the name. I love that he still wants to have his own brand and is pushing something in apparel. Again, it's like we said with TGL. If Tiger's got his imprimatur on something, it's probably going to be successful. If I were Nike, I'm not sure I would have let that relationship lapse, even if he's not winning. And same with Federer. The value of having these titans in your athlete portfolio is enormous, even when they're not winning tournaments anymore. So we are certainly covering the growth of Tiger's new brand very closely at FOS.
Dan, you guys have also covered quite a lot of the PGA Tour Live dispute and the potential for a deal with the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia. Fox Sports announced a broadcast deal recently with Live. We keep seeing it reported that the rights fee involved is modest, to use their word. Do you have any sense of what this product is actually worth to the broadcaster, or are we just talking kind of nominal fees here?
I have also heard nominal fees, maybe even close to no or very small agreement up front, very little money changing hands. Let's remember, and respectfully to Live, because they've made enough of a splash here that people care. And, you know, it's a big deal when they face off at majors, the Live guys versus the PGA guys. But, you know, I think Live was kind of scrambling to get a new deal. I don't know that the CW is where they wanted to be. I said this off the top, but the fact that some Live events are going to air on Fox Business Network kind of tells you a lot. It's anyone's guess what happens next in terms of the tie-up, but certainly merger was never quite the right word for what's going to happen between these two bodies.
Dan, we appreciate the time. Fascinating conversation on the business of the game and even taking a march down memory lane to a special time during the prime Tiger Woods era. Dan Roberts, Front Office Sports. Dan, we appreciate it.